You're listening to Your Financial Identity with your host, Renee Hansen, where we explore relationships with money. We're talking about how our money stories, values, knowledge, skill set, and experiences develop financial identity, bringing awareness to financial behavior. In this episode, we're going to talk about the beginning of your financial identity. And I have my producer with me today, Dave, and we're going to go through sharing the story of bringing this to life.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad you're here. You've been instrumental through the process, and I value your insight.
Yeah, I'm really excited to do this. It's exciting to be doing a podcast together, and I really hope that people find value in this.
Me too.
I would love to start with talking about this book that you've published. It's called Finding Your Financial Identity. What prompted you to write it? What is your why?
It's a long story, but I won't take up the entire episode. It started from my career as a financial advisor in working with people. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm a chartered financial consultant, certified fund specialist, certified estate planner. Essentially, I'm certifiable. And one of the designations also is a certified divorce financial analyst, which brings a whole host of emotion to one's financial identity. Along the way, I discovered that there is more to our money than simply the numbers of money. And I went on and continued my education, becoming a behavioral financial advisor, a certified financial transitionist. And I realized that all of those skills and knowledge taught me wonderful things about working with people and their money, really the purpose of their money. What it did not do is help people understand their financial identity. From this side of the table, many experienced advisors can quickly assess a situation, but it's still the elephant in the room. I might know what's going on, but if the client doesn't recognize it, it doesn't help us come together and be collaborative in the relationship. And I decided it was time that we remove the elephant in the room, the silent language, and if we had greater collaboration and awareness between both client and advisor, that it would bring greater comfort and confidence and likely a greater financial success. And that's what I experienced in my practice. So I wrote a book for people to understand their financial identity. And let's eliminate even the intimidation and anxiety around money.
That you mentioned like all the different certifications and that sort of thing. Was it mostly divorce related that got you kind of thinking down this path? Because that's sort of what I heard you say, but maybe I'm misunderstanding that.
I can see where you would come to that conclusion. It wasn't, but it was an aha for me, is that everybody has emotions around money. And was I digging deep enough to truly understand how people feel about their money? And that's when I began asking people about their money story and understanding what were their early origins of money. With that, I began to dig deeper in how people feel. I got a lot of feelings with people in the divorce world. There is no doubt about it. I mean, they walked in with deep feelings. But it made me ask the question, what else are you feeling? So I can see where people would come to that conclusion, where high emotions around divorce, but there's just high emotions around money in general. They may not be evident immediately, but life is full of transitions, and it can evoke emotions around money, whether we're going through a divorce or not. Christmas can evoke a lot of emotions around money. Holidays in general can evoke emotions around money. So I discovered that it was more than just people experiencing life transitions, but what are their feelings around money? What is the purpose of their money?
You mentioned all of these certifications that you have, and they're clearly not all about this concept of financial identity. What made you focus on this topic first? And did you think of any other things you might want to write about?
I've been interested for years in helping people understand more about money. Maybe at heart, I'm an educator. I've been accused of that in the past, as you're always teaching something. So I've thought about writing a book, but writing a book about money and telling people about money still doesn't move people past the numbers into the emotions of it. Because I do know that most people will make financial decisions based on emotions, more so than on the numbers. Think about buying a house, right? You will walk in and you will love the home before you really think about the numbers, even though you went into the home thinking, this is what I can or can't afford. So I know people make decisions around people make purchasing decisions oftentimes with emotions. So that concept began to grow and develop in my mind, and I have a passion around it. I have a passion around people feeling really good about their money. One of the things I remember early in my career is that we would set up vacation funds for people, right? This is the money you're going to spend. And then people would say, well, I don't know that I want to spend all of it. And I'd ask, why? We've been saving for you to go on vacation. Why wouldn't you spend every last penny on having fun? Well, I don't know. It was hard to save would be some of the answers. And so we would really explore, and people needed permission, particularly from their financial advisor, to say, spend every last penny on the vacation fund on vacation. And sometimes it would shift their values. They would save and feel really good about it and say, well, I might be able to get 2 vacations out of this instead of 1 if I think about it differently. Excellent. So the emotions began to grow. That's how I settled on finding your financial identity. And when people understand their financial identity, they feel better about their financial decisions.
That's very interesting. Well, I will tell you personally, I'm very excited to talk to you about this because I don't know anybody who doesn't want to feel better about their money.
And some people do flow through life with money. Some have a carefree attitude, but most people have a relationship with money.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump into the book.
Okay.
I've read the book myself, and I found it very interesting. One of the first things that you talk about is the 5 attributes of a person's financial identity. And the first one is called their money story. I would love to hear more about what a person's money story is and what forms that.
Money stories are our earliest experiences with money. And each person will have an early experience or an experience that resonates loudly with them. It could be from their first experience in spending money, an allowance that they got and they got to spend it. It could be their first saving experience. It could be their first working experience. Oftentimes, it also includes observations or experiences with other people that are important to them. Parents, for example, how their parents behaved around money, whether they talked about money or didn't. So it's our earliest memories of something about money that begins to shape our story, and then we build chapters along the way.
That's a really fascinating thing that you mentioned, the idea of how strongly a person's relationship with their parents forms that money story. I hadn't really thought of it before, but when I first got married, one of the big differences between my wife and I was our attitudes about money. And I never really thought of why we might have those different attitudes. I'd never been responsible for collaborating with someone before financially. I was always on my own. Mm-hmm. And now that you mention it, that makes a lot of sense.
And you bring up an important point that when people come together in a relationship, whether it's marriage or a business relationship, it's really important to understand that person's perspective with regard to money and what their relationship is, because they will behave accordingly to their financial identity, and the money story is a big component of that.
So this might be too personal, and you're welcome to not share it if you're not comfortable sharing it, but I would love to hear about those formative years for you and what that was like for you to form your money story when you were young.
I should probably have a therapist sitting here with me. I come from parents that divorced, and they did have maybe similar money stories, but certainly different behaviors, where my father was a saver and my mother was not. And maybe that is part of what caused them to divorce. I was 8 years old when they divorced. I do not recall them having discussions around money, but as I got older, I could clearly see the differences, and they didn't have open discussions, but I witnessed their behavior. So sometimes seeing it is part of the story. I was early on. I was financially responsible for myself. I started college at 16, so you can see that I had to make some different decisions in my life early on. What I remember when I was in high school, I was living in Hawaii out of another person's home, a family. My mother and her husband, my stepfather, had already left the island, and I was finishing up school. So it meant that it was money was important to me. Eating was important to me. And so I worked very hard to earn a dollar. And I remember when I left Hawaii and I started college, my second year of college, I was going to the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs and putting my clothes away in my new apartment. And as I put my socks in there, they were a new set of socks. And I was delighted to have these new socks. And I had decided that I had arrived. I had socks with no holes in them. And to this day, when I open up my sock drawer, that is exactly how I feel. It will stay with you for a long period of time.
That's pretty amazing that something that happened so long ago and seems so minute has had such a large influence on your life and continues to resonate with you. I'll have to think about whether I have anything like that. Nothing immediately comes to mind for me, but I'm sure there's something.
And, as people are listening, they may have something that stands out right away that they remember as an early story or that they still recognize as a level of success.
Great. There's 4 other things besides a person's money story that you talk about. There's the values, knowledge, skills, and experiences. Could you touch on those a little bit and how those 4 things interact with the person's money story?
My behavioral financial advisor designation, BFA, through Think to Perform Institute, taught me that people will behave within the scope of their values. And I learned about people's biases. We have biases about money and biases about many other things as well. And so that really taught me understanding that a person's values. And I began early, right away, I wouldn't say early in my career, but right away after my BFA designation, that I wanted to understand my clients' values. And you narrow it down to your top 5 values, and it will be you'll behave very closely to those behaviors or to your values throughout your lifetime. If, for example, if family is important, is one of your top values, you'll go to great lengths to make sure that your family is taken care of. What's interesting, and further reading, yes, I'm always reading, is the Enneagram Institute will tell us that based on our personality that we will behave within the 3 levels of whether we're in a healthy frame of mind, average frame of mind, or unhealthy frame of mind. What I discovered is that people do behave within the scope of that, clearly influenced by their top values. So in the financial world, if someone tells me security is very important to them, and they're feeling threatened because of economic data or potentially a divorce, a death of their spouse, this can threaten their sense of security. And when it threatens their sense of security, then I can clearly observe their behavior around that. And is the behavior self-sabotaging, right? So do we do the knee-jerk reaction and then we're unable to make financial decisions? And that's where I began to help people cope through changes and be able to recognize what's going on, the awareness factor.
Okay, so there's money, story, and values. How about knowledge?
Knowledge is one of those where people will feel intimidated very quickly. And I find this regularly. We do know a lot more about money than we give ourselves credit for. Oftentimes when someone says, well, what do you know about money? We quickly ramp up to, well, I don't know anything about investments, or I'm a saver, or I'm a spender. And it really doesn't recognize the knowledge component of it. But we do have knowledge, and we build knowledge regularly, recognizing our capacity for knowledge and what we really want to know. I know how to put a Band-Aid on, but I'm not doing my own surgery, right? So I know enough when I need to go to the doctor. I know enough when I need to clean a wound and bandage it. It doesn't mean that I want to know how to fix everything, all my injuries. So frequently people will feel intimidated about knowledge. They'll feel intimidated about what they don't know. Particularly, they don't know what they don't know. And then that creates a sense of anxiety. And frequently we do the knee-jerk pulling back rather than asking the questions, because we don't want to show people we don't know things. But how can we possibly know everything about money? They don't teach it in school. They don't teach it at the high school level. It's not even a requirement at the college level. Certain degrees you need to know more, but even people coming out of finance don't know everything about money. So it creates this intimidation factor, and we can build knowledge along the way if we learn how to ask the questions and what our capacity, what do we want to know about money?
That resonates with me a lot, and tying that knowledge back into your family experiences makes me think about when I finished college and was entering the working world. I asked my father, how do I save for retirement? And he said, well, you need to put the money into your 401k, and you need to figure out how much you think you're going to need to live comfortably once you retire. And then you should just put everything in the S&P 500. I did that for the last 45 years, and it served me great. And that was essentially the extent of my financial education for the last 20 years.
I think that is, it goes right back to your money story. Who do you reach out to that are important to you, that you have faith in, right? That you trust to give you good advice. As you've discovered along the way, that there's more to that now than that. But for some people, that works very well. For others, we can expand that and say, well, now that we have all that money in the tax-deferred category, because you put the money in the 401k, you got a current tax break each year, and that's growing, but when it comes out, it'll be taxable to you. Well, with our progressive tax rates, the more you take out, the higher your tax bracket goes. Could we look at two other categories that we call asset location, which is the tax-free category, and the taxable? The taxable means that we pay taxes on our interest, dividends, and long-term capital gains. But we may be in a lower tax bracket in that particular category, maybe even zero. So can we pull some from the taxable, some from the tax-deferred, some from the tax-free, and manage our progressive tax rates that we keep it lower? And this is how we build knowledge along the way to where you're doing a great job. Can you tweak it to then address another area of key financial planning, which is taxation?
So when I hear you talk about these different areas and the experiences that people have had and having to be aware of tax deferred versus pre-tax versus post-tax, to me, the line there feels like it's getting a little blurred between what's a knowledge and what's a skill. So could you talk a little bit about what the difference is between knowledge and skill in this financial identity concept?
I think one of the best examples, and it's in the book, is about budgeting. So everyone knows what a budget is. The question is can you put a budget together? And let's say you do put a budget together and you're tracking it for a couple of months and you discover, oh, I have a little money left over. So naturally, you put it into a savings account or it grows in your checking account. And then there comes a point and you say, I wonder what I should do with that. The skill begins to say, I could increase my 401k. I could begin to build my cash reserve. And once I get those taken care of, now I have a little more. So now what we find is someone's skill set is growing from creating a budget to managing a budget to then promoting to what does this mean to me? Should I save more in these areas? So your skill set grows with regard to money. Another key example is I know I need to put money into a 401k. I get my login credentials. I go in there. I move around a little bit. I discover, oh, here's the investments I should look at. And like you reached out to someone that could help you, your father. Most people do reach out to family members or good friends who have knowledge. Then they begin to do that. Along the way, they realize, I think I could diversify. I take a class on the investments through my 401k plan. So they begin to build skill set, which builds a degree of confidence. I'm capable of doing some things. It also frequently then goes back to the what don't I know? And that begins to grow. How do I find out what I don't know? And growing that.
Or maybe depending on your earlier experiences and other things, tying experiences into this. Maybe if a person has had bad experiences, they aren't figuring out how to grow and they're just sticking their head in the sand.
There is the ostrich effect that people will just ignore. And if I don't have to make a decision, I won't make the wrong decision. Therefore, I'm good, right?
Not realizing that not making a decision is in and of itself a choice.
Correct.
Yeah. So, can you talk more about that? Experiences?
Experiences, boy, they can lift you high and crush you in a moment, particularly with money. Although one could say in a relationship that could do the same. But our relationship with money can cause us to feel like, wow, I made a really good decision. I'd like to repeat that decision and do it again. The question is, was the decision just the right timing, or was that the right decision for what your financial goals are, what your values, your goals, and your risk tolerances are when it comes to money? And when I say that, you'll hear me say this over the years, which is your values, goals, and risk tolerance, when working within the framework of your financial identity, will allow you to make more comfortable and confident financial decisions to find the financial success that you're looking for. I truly believe that people should live their lives with money around it, versus where I see so many people have money as their central and focal point and live around that. And if we can begin to shift that, then we begin to have different experiences. And as we have good experiences in making financial decisions, it builds our confidence and comfort so that our financial identity continues to expand.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And it sounds appealing, this idea that you can somehow grow and learn new things. For me, I feel like I've been pretty stagnant in my relationship with money over my whole life. When I think back about how I thought about money as a teenager versus how I thought about money in my 20s versus how I thought about money in my 30s and now my 40s, I'm definitely doing better financially, but I'm not really doing anything different financially than I was, say, 20 years ago. But what I hear you talking about is like maybe there's a better way or a path forward for how people can change this kind of relationship and change their money story. Is that true?
It is true. And I wouldn't say change the money story, but expand and grow the money story with chapters that feel a little more comfortable if your first chapters are not wonderful. What you're doing is looking to say, do I need to have more experiences building my money story so that the ending of my book is exactly what I envision it to be? And that's where financial advisors are experts at helping people. You've arrived at that point where you need to do more, you want to do more, and this is where a relationship with a financial advisor would probably build out that book to be exactly what you want it to be. You've been working hard over the years with your family and your career, and you've arrived on many levels, the successes that you've had. And this is where you begin to say, I know I can do more. Now I need to find out what more means to me.
That exactly feels right to me. What does it mean, and how do you do it?
Many people do it on their own, and there's nothing wrong with doing it on your own. I think sometimes people feel that that only a financial advisor can bring success. Studies and surveys and all those things have shown us over the years that most people are more successful with a financial advisor, and entering that relationship can be very valuable with the right advisor. There are a lot of right advisors. There's thousands and thousands of advisors. So choosing one is important, that you find that you can collaborate and have a relationship. Ideally, one that has a skill set in the emotional side of money, tying the technical and emotional side to money together to help build this type of strength in your comfort and confidence.
I've heard you say the word relationship a lot. People have a relationship with money. People have a relationship with their advisors. People have a relationship with their family, maybe with their coworkers. Could you talk more about relationships and what it means for people to have a relationship with money?
And I'm going to use authentic relationships and authentic conversations, because relationships are about conversations. Oftentimes you hear people going through divorces, we just stopped communicating. Yes, that's exactly what happens. We start communicating, we stop communicating, we stop the relationship. And when we put a pause on a relationship, oftentimes there's a bad outcome. So our relationships with people, if we have more authentic conversations and we get to know each other better, that can help in moving forward in the relationship. When I speak on this topic, I always share the story of when you ask someone how are they feeling and they say fine. We all know fine is not the right answer, or it's not a good answer. It may be the answer, but it's not the answer you really want to hear. And a girlfriend explained fine to me as feelings inside not expressed. Okay. So ordinarily, our first response is to turn around and say, okay, well, they're fine. And we don't go any deeper. But what if we ask that question, when you ask your spouse, how are you feeling? Fine. You actually are aware of what you're feeling. And that awareness is, gee, honey, fine doesn't feel so fine for me. How can I turn that fine into great or wonderful? And that begins a conversation. And the other story I oftentimes share is when someone says to you, you're angry. What is your first response? No, I'm not. And the answer is you probably are. Whereas if someone were to say, I'm feeling some discontent in you, can you tell me what you're feeling? And what the question what evokes the, well, I'm feeling angry, where you own what's going on. And the same thing in your financial relationship with money, which is understanding what your feelings are and being able to communicate that. So when you have an effective advisor, when you're working with an advisor who can ask those questions, not how are you feeling, but what are you feeling? Tell me about your money story. Tell me the experiences you've had. What have been good ones? What have been bad ones? Let me understand you. And then we're going to work on you understanding me, where we have this relationship together that oftentimes grows into, I'll call it professional friendships, and sometimes even more, where you get to know one another so well that the money conversation is about living life fully and enjoying money and really understanding what you want that to do for you.
That sounds very interesting. And honestly, it sounds inspiring that you're able to build those kind of relationships for people with their money. It sounds very appealing to me. Could you talk a little bit about, do these relationships fall into different categories? When we have personal relationships, we have people who we really like, people who we really don't like, people who are acquaintances, people who we tolerate, people who we're thrilled to see, like you. Are there the same kind of thing with money relationships? And if there are, how do you change them to make them better?
Yes, we have an evolution of a relationship with money like we do with people. And there are some people we get together with and we have more of a surface relationship. Co-workers, we might get together and have dinner once or twice a year. There are, relationships where you get together, have phone calls, that sort of a thing, and others where you might travel together. With money, it's the same thing. We start early on where, we know it's there and we have a surface relationship. We need it. It serves our needs, growing into serving our wants. And so we know that we need a job. We need money that comes in so that we can pay our bills. But then it begins to grow on how we feel about it. We talk about people who get to a level where they have a surplus and now they can do more things where they've satisfied all the needs and they get to do a few of the wants. Some people will start with bringing wants in and they feel good about that. Others, woohoo, I have money at the end of the paycheck and I can do more. And they go out and spend that and then some, building debt, and it doesn't feel so good. And if we can be aware of how we're growing our relationship with money, where we can do the things we want money to do for us and feel good about it, then we're growing that relationship to where we fall in love with money again. We get to go and do fun things.
The idea of being in love with your money is not one I've heard before, but one I would be very excited for.
It's how we can grow our financial identity and be in love with our money.
Yeah, I love that. All right, I'd like to do some rapid fire questions, things that I saw in the book that I thought were particularly interesting, that I would love to hear your thoughts on. The first one is around this idea of the personal vignettes that you have throughout the book. The book gives very practical advice and then seems to drive it home with stories that you've come up with about various people and their situations. I would love to know how you came up with these stories. Were they inspired from real life people or something else?
None of the stories are about any people that I've worked with, not a single one. But I do witness behavior over time, even of people that I see out and about. And that's where the stories came from. They were fun to create and they were fun to write. And I almost felt like I knew the people as I was writing about them.
It really made things feel more personal than academic, which I really enjoyed. Another thing that you talk about in the book is these different levels of financial identity. So you talk about novice, apprentice, competent, accomplished, and master. And in one of the chapters, you start talking about different skills that these people have. And one of the things that I found really challenging is that there was some things where I felt all over the spectrum. At one point it talks about, do you understand the economic value of money? And that's an apprentice behavior. At another point in time, it talks about if you know the key principle of financial management, which is a learner attribute. I'm pretty good at ignoring news noise around money. I've never panic sold in my 401k or moved everything into cash. And that's a competent type of thing, not being panicked by things that are going on around you. So in some ways, I saw myself like climbing up that ladder. And then in other ways, I found myself totally at the bottom of the ladder. For example, one of the things of a novice is they have a very high spending pleasure. And I've got to tell you, I love to buy gifts for people and spend money. And there is not a time that I have bought something and not felt great about it. So how do you kind of reconcile this spectrum of personalities that you talk about?
The reason I chose to put a spectrum in place for financial identity is that so many people they compare themselves to the Joneses. You've heard that line before, right?
Yeah.
And why do they have newer cars? And how come they got to put in new floors? Look at the pool they put in their backyard. Why can't we do that? I mean, how much do they make? So, and we don't knock on the door and say, I noticed you put a new pool in. How much was that? And how much do you make? Why can you afford it and I can't? Right? So this comparison spectrum can be debilitating to people and can be paralyzing in making financial decisions. Some people will just continue to go into debt to keep pace with the Joneses. Others feel compelled that they must have more money, and so they have to go out and work harder, and not finding this great work-life balance on the purpose of their money, but trying to compare to the purpose of other people's money. So I wanted to put together this pendulum so that people can begin to see where they are and how they measure other people. They'll begin to measure others on this pendulum as well. Like, okay, you're really, really smart about money. Tell me how you learned about it. It creates the ability to ask more questions without being fearful of hearing the answer. Have you ever sat around in a group at work and someone starts talking about something financial? I bought crypto today. You did too, right? And you're put on the spot. And you what you want to do is just get up and say, "Excuse me, my mother's calling," and step out of the conversation. Versus saying, "Why did you buy crypto today? What prompted you?" Sometimes they don't even know what did it. It could have been FOMO, the fear of missing out. And they are not going to confess to that. But then you can begin to assess, well, maybe they don't know as much as they are exhibiting in their behavior, but maybe I do want to know more. No, I didn't buy crypto. In fact, I don't even understand crypto. I'm fearful of it. What if I lose my key? I mean, they don't come out with these things. They don't talk emotionally about it. It's all this technical. Well, it was low. It dropped 10% today, and that's why I bought it. No, you bought it because you thought it was good for you. Why is it good for you? If we can create this sense of understanding where we fall on this financial identity pendulum, then we can begin to think, do we need to build in this area, and how do we go about doing it in a comfortable fashion so that we don't feel stupid and intimidated? Because money can make people feel intimidated.
I think the pendulum is a very apt analogy, because I will tell you, in reading this book and reading the different personalities and the different influences, it made me feel like I was swinging all over the place.
And it's okay. And then we have to determine how much we want to know. And going back to the medical thing, I don't want to learn how to stitch up my cuts, but I do want to know when it's time to go see a professional to fix me or help me. And I'm not saying a financial advisor fixes people. That's not what I'm saying at all. I am saying that you can work with people you trust, whether it's a family member, a financial advisor, a group of people who want to know more about money and begin to explore together. Whatever the avenue is, only to your capacity. You don't need to be a surgeon.
Yeah, that's great. Another thing that I found really interesting that you reiterated throughout the book was this idea that you don't have to be in the quote unquote top 1% to be a master or accomplished in your financial identity. I think a lot of people, myself included, think that the way that you make it to the top financially is just get as much money as you can, because once you have enough of it, you're not going to really have to worry about what you do with it. And you're clearly trying to send a different message here. And I'm wondering if you could talk about that a little bit, and how people who maybe aren't earning, $200,000 or $300,000 a year can still be successful financially and happy in their financial identity.
Going back to, what do you want your life to look like? How do you want to live it today? How do you want to live it in the future? If we really understand what this is supposed to look like, remember, we're working with life, and then we put money around it. From there, then we can shape what is the important factors of the 7 key areas of financial planning that you need to look at to make sure that you're going to achieve this ultimate purpose. If we are aware of how much we make and how much we spend and what we want our money to do, then we'll become better at making decisions. Awareness is a key factor when it comes to being a business owner or being the CEO of your household. Is you need to be aware of what you want to accomplish, and from there, then we can build on that. It's not how much you make, it's how well you manage what you're doing. And you want to manage to your purpose and what you want your life to look like. People who make a lot of money, they just have more worries with money as they accumulate more. It doesn't make it any easier, and they're not any smarter just because they have more money. Think about a lottery winner. They didn't suddenly become smart because they're a millionaire.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting that you mentioned that. I was reading some statistic the other day in a news article that said something like 40% of people making over $200,000 a year still living paycheck to paycheck.
That's correct. Yep. When we live our life based on what our values, goals, and risk tolerances are with a focus on our financial identity, it helps us gain awareness of who we are so that we can make decisions and feel much more comfortable and confident in those financial decisions, that we are living our life and letting money serve us.
That makes sense. So essentially, the idea is grow your awareness of your financial identity and then start making decisions in such a way that are in line with that identity, and
Right.
you find satisfaction that way.
Yeah, not in comparison to what others are doing, but what can I do for how I want to live life? At one of the conferences I was at recently, I was reminded of this saying that I used to use years ago, or a concept, which is I see people through the end of their life. So it's talk about emotions, right? I've never heard anyone on their deathbed talk about the things they regretted doing, but they oftentimes talk about the things that they regretted not doing. And if we can build our financial identity to where we are living our life fully, then we're being true to ourselves, we're being authentic to ourselves, we're being authentic with our family and our friends, and living fully. So this awareness is a key factor so that we can feel good in our relationship with money.
That makes a lot of sense. So as I was reading the book, one of the things it talked about is these top values and how those values tie in to your awareness and your financial identity. And I thought it'd be fun. I did not do this beforehand, and I thought it'd be fun together for us to walk through how you identify these top values. You give a list of 50 of them, and the guidance you give in the book, I think, is to go through and cross out any that just don't apply at all. And
Right.
then after you've eliminated all the ones that don't apply, you sort of start whittling it down. You say, okay, I'm going to pick my top 15. And then out of the top 15, I'm going to pick my top 10. And then out of the top 10, I'm going to pick my top 5. And I thought it would be fun for us to go through this together and kind of give people a feel for what that looks like, and how you also, as a financial advisor, focusing in this special area of financial identity, might help people understand this kind of thing. Because to be honest with you, I looked at this list ahead of time, and I think it's going to be quite hard to whittle this down to only 5 things.
It is hard. We may need 3 episodes. I will tell you that the first time I went through this, it was years and years ago, I did with my former husband, and we were on a cruise, and we thought, well, we'll just buzz through this and, head to breakfast. 4 hours later, and at the time I used cards. Think to Perform had cards at that point in time where you'd lay them out and you would choose and you'd turn them on, the ones over that you didn't want or that didn't resonate with you. But it took us a while. So how I go about doing this is helping people understand that we do need to get to the top 5, because we will behave within the top 5. Periodically, people will say, well, 6. It's 6. Okay, fine. You have to do what's right for you. We don't have to be so stuck in the rules, right? So we start with going through, and quickly the ones that don't resonate with you, just cross off. And then I'm going to tell you how I came to terms with one of mine. Integrity is one of my top 5 values. Honesty, ethics, and integrity, if you read the definitions of those, are very similar, very, very similar. Ultimately, in my mind, I felt that I could not be integrous if I didn't have ethics and honesty, so I chose integrity. Another one that gets people is that family and friendship. So read the family definition one on there, Dave.
Okay, let's see what it says about family. Family says connection to immediate or extended relations.
And read friendship now.
Friendship. Oh, I'm just now realizing they're alphabetical, which makes this a lot easier. You really put me on the spot there for a minute. You said read friendship?
Yes.
Friendship says strong ties with family, friends, coworkers, or members of a certain community.
Right. So when you think about that, most people will do a knee-jerk reaction and say, family, of course. I mean, they're most important. But family is included in friendship. And for many people, friendship resonates more because it's about relationships with people. It doesn't mean that friends are more important than family, but you can see where some people would choose friendship because it's a little more inclusive of that.
Yeah, and it gets even more complicated than that because as I'm looking through my alphabetical list here, I now see there's also one for relationships.
Yes.
Okay, well, I promise that we won't make this take 4 hours, but let's see if we can get through this.
Okay.
All right, so the first value, adventure, seeks out and or participates in exciting events that involve uncertainty. I definitely like adventure. Autonomy places importance of freedom, independence, and individual discretion. Yeah, I think that is important to me. Challenges, things or situations that test a person's thought or abilities. I like a good challenge. Change, a shift from one state, stage, or phase to another. You know, if you had asked me 10 years ago if this was important to me, I would have said yes. Danny and I have moved all over the country, competed all over the country with our horses and our daughter's horses. And I've changed jobs when I've gotten bored. In the past, change would have been very important to me. But as I've gotten older, I would say now change is not so important to me. And actually, I really want things to stay the same. So I'm going to cross that one off. Is that a thing that happens? People's values change over time?
Yes, I actually encourage people to review their values. Meaningful work is one of the values. And I've had people who have retired and have said, no, it's still important to me. It just doesn't mean I'm earning money, but meaningful work at charities, communities, that sort of thing.
Okay, next one is community, a group of people with a common background or characteristic or with shared interests. I think I'm going to end up being satisfied with this through family or relationships or something like that. Okay. So I'm going to mark that one off. Competence, the ability to solve problems and demonstrate mastery. That's important. Competition, comparison of self, teams, or organization against oneself or others. I'm not a competitive person. I'm going to mark that one off. Cooperation, placing importance on working together to achieve results, go along with a role. That's definitely important to me. Creativity, placing importance on imagination, inspiration, and inventiveness. I am not a creative person. That is not important to me.
This is why you're engineering.
Yes. Decisiveness, the ability to make decisions firmly, clearly, conclusively, and in a timely manner. Yes, I do like a decisive person. Diversity, appreciate and respect individual differences. That is definitely important to me, but I don't think there's a world in which that's going to be in my top 5. So I'm just going to cross it off now.
You know, and it's interesting. Diversity is usually important to many, many people. As you point out, it's important to you, but it may not be a top 5. But I've also found that some people feel compelled during periods of social strife that they must answer yes to certain things, similar to the family. It's like, well, certainly family must be most important to me, so I must mark X because I don't want anyone to judge me. Your values are your values. They're not up for judgment. People who like fame, which is why they're actors, it's okay. That's how they excel in their career. So I encourage people as they go through this process that this isn't about being judged. This is what prompts you to behave.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And at the end of the day, if you're not honest with yourself, you're probably just going to end up being in a difficult position later on.
Bad relationship with yourself, bad relationship with others, bad relationship with money. I see a theme.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. The next one is ecology and environment, awareness of natural resources, also important, but not going to be in my top 5. Education might be there. I'm going to leave that one for now. Ethics, valuing moral standards, also might be there for now. Excellence, pursuit of the highest level of optimal performance, also might be there. Excitement. Oh, this is interesting. Excitement and adventure. I can see now why this is starting to take so long. And maybe I'm not going to actually be able to meet my commitment of getting through all of this in one session because it's going to be tough to pick between some of these.
And it's okay if we don't get through this for our audience to hear it all. But I thought you did a really good job of sharing and showing how this will take a little more time.
All right, let's at least go through and eliminate all of the ones that aren't important, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Okay.
All right. Fairness. Yes, that's important.
My,
Fame.
my kids called that the F word in the house growing up.
All right. Fame, we already talked about. Definitely not important to me. I'm going to cheat here a little bit and say that because we already talked about the family versus friendship thing, I'm going to take family off the list because the friendship, which includes strong ties to family, is probably more pertinent to me. Flexibility, the ability to adapt to different environments, situations, or change. Definitely not on my list. When I choose a different way to drive to the store, it stresses my wife out. Freedom without obligation, also not that important to me. I'm happy to have obligations. Friendship might be on there. Happiness. This is interesting. I think this is another one that falls into and especially this is a thing that I could see how your upbringing makes a big difference, because to me, actually, like, my happiness is probably not anywhere in the top of my values. I would say that the happiness of other people around me probably rates higher than my own happiness to me.
Having known you for a while, I would agree with that statement.
Okay. Health, placing importance on physical and emotional well-being might be in there. Helping others, placing importance on assisting other people might be in there. Honesty might be in there. Independence might be in there. Integrity might be in there. Leadership, the ability to create relationships to complete a stated goal or mission, probably not in there for me. Loyalty, allegiances to people, organizations, ideals, causes, etc., probably not in there for me. All right, we're through 30 so far. Number 31, meaningful work, doing and providing work that has a purpose and or significance. I love to work, but I think it is important to me that my work is meaningful. Money, financial assets, the accumulation of wealth, definitely not in my top 5. Order, adherence to a system, protocol, or code. I am definitely an ordered person. All of my shirts in my closet are organized by type and color. Philanthropy, giving a monetary gift to the benefit of others, probably not in my list. Play, imagination, spontaneity, and the ability to be amused. Danny, my wife, will tell you I am not a playful person. I'm not going to put that one on the list. Pleasure, enjoyment, delights, satisfaction, or fulfillment. Maybe. Power, strength, superiority, dominance, and or authority. No. Privacy, the need for solitude or separateness. No. Recognition, acknowledgement, and or validation. I appreciate when I get it, but not in my top 5. Relationships, connecting between and among people. Maybe. Religion, a specific system of belief or worship. No. Safety, a concern for the security and well-being of oneself or others. I've never felt unsafe, so it's hard to know how I would answer this one. Maybe it would be important to me if I'd ever felt unsafe, but I can't say that I ever have.
Yeah. And I think that that's true. It goes back to some of our life experiences. Kind of ties into our money story too, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay, security. The feeling of being protected or safeguarded from danger. A sense of comfort. No. Service. Placing importance on serving others with quality and value. Maybe. Spirituality. Appreciating the need to understand one's inner self and its relationship with the world. No. Stability. Taking on day-to-day activities in a calm and consistent manner. I don't mind a little bit of chaos.
This is good news in your life.
Probably. After all, we are taking this on. Status, placing importance on the rank, position, or relative standing of somebody or something in a relationship. No. Wealth, richness in terms of assets or money. Maybe. Work, employment, occupation, or fulfillment of a task or duty. Maybe. All right, we're going to not bore people anymore, but I want to just count how many of these I've eliminated and how many are left. And maybe you can talk a little bit about what you would have people do from here. So there were 50 of these to begin with, and after eliminating the ones that are obviously not important, we are left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So I eliminated about 50% of them.
Yeah. Not uncommon to see that. The next step would be bringing it down to the top 10. And it's interesting, the next time around is a little easier because it's fewer choices. If ever you shopped at a store and you have to choose one of 20, you'll get down to 2 pretty darn quick, and then you go from there. You buy what you want, and the next time you want to buy something different, you can. Remember, we're choosing the values. It doesn't mean that we don't change the values. So I think if we can focus on what resonates most right now, then it can be easier. So down to the next 10, and then from there to the top 5. It does become easier each step of the way. And you're going to be able to begin to look at what really means to you. As I talked about the integrity, the honesty, and the ethics, is all 3 of those were in my top 10. And what I determined is I felt in my mind that to be integrous, I had to have honesty and ethics to do that.
Okay, well, maybe we will save the rest of this activity for another time.
Okay.
What I'd love to end with is to give you an opportunity for people that are interested in learning more. What resources are out there and available to them?
Certainly go to yourfinancialidentity.com, where you can purchase Finding Your Financial Identity and start with learning who you are. Begin to become aware of your relationship with money. In our next episode, we're going to be talking with Sally. Sally's going to share with us her early money story and how she's learning independence. We've had a good time today, and we hope you have too. If you have enjoyed this discussion, please rate or review us on Apple Podcast and like or subscribe on YouTube. And if you'd like to be a guest, please reach out to us at yourfinancialidentity.com.